These brothers unsuspectingly made the purchase of a lifetime. It was a large piece of land on the outskirts of town. They were planning to build their own home there, but they did not expect this shed to still be present on the grounds. They opened it, and inside, they found a hidden secret that revealed the identity of the former owner. A discovery that would change their lives forever. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't. And hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Brothers Henry and Tom were on their way to their newly purchased piece of land. It was a thrilling drive, and both brothers couldn't wait to see what their investment had brought them. They got the place for basically nothing at an online auction, so maybe it was a bust, but still, the excitement was high. They arrived at the gate and took the first steps on their new property not much later. The terrain was rough, and Tom immediately saw that it needed much work. But then they noticed something they didn't expect to see. A structure stood in the middle of the land, a building they did not see on the map they received after the purchase. It looked like an old, rusty shed. Henry walked around the worn-down building, while Tom yanked at the two large doors in the front. They looked at the heavy chain lock connecting the two doors together. "What now?" Tom asked. But Henry knew just how to solve this problem. They were going to break the lock open. Henry looked around for something that could help them and quickly found the solution to their problem. A steel pipe stuck out between some rubble, so he picked it up and shoved it between the lock's chains. The pipe created a lever that would be strong enough to break the chain. And it worked because, after a couple of tries, they heard the sweet sound of a chain bursting. Inside, there waited an immense secret. The air inside was warm and humid, and it was too dark to see anything properly. So Henry and Tom used their flashlights to look around. It became clear that this shed had not seen the light of day in many years. The empty cabinets were full of mold had formed, and vegetation had overgrown most of the shed's innards. But there was something in the back that piqued their interest. In the right corner of the worn-down building, there were multiple large boxes, some with hanging locks, just like the shed had, but smaller, and some with no locks at all. The two brothers were fascinated. They felt like they were on some storage hunter TV show. "Ready to find some treasure?" Tom said, smiling as they lifted the boxes out into the open. The boxes were old, but the details on them were intricate and well kept. It made them look way too important to just be tossed out to rot in a shed. And their insides proved it. The boxes were filled with documents, a complex-looking blueprint, and pictures of a man and his family, which didn't just look old, they looked ancient. The people's clothing in the picture was clearly not from a modern era. They saw black and white photos of a man supporting a considerable mustache, a woman in a corset, and a little girl holding a creepy doll. When Tom removed all the files from the box, he even found what was left of the doll from the picture. "What is all this?" he said, staring at the doll. "These must have been the original owners of the land," Henry said in amazement. Then something on the blueprint caught Henry's attention. He saw what appeared to be the shed, but it seemed to be part of a much bigger house. But what really caught his attention was what was scribbled in the corner. The blueprint was filled with perfectly straight lines. The drawings were so detailed and precise that they must have taken months to create. A part that was clearly put on there as a finishing touch. It was the signature of the maker. The initials read RS. They were encased in an upside-down triangle, and something about it felt really familiar to Henry. Tom showed his brother the signature, and he also recognized the marking. The intriguing find and mysterious RS person held their interest. They had to find out who it was. So the two brothers stepped into their car and drove to the first place they could think of. The local library was the first stop on their road to discovery. It held a vast collection of books about the history of this town, and the Wi-Fi was way better here than back at home. The two brothers split up tasks and searched for hours, but unfortunately, their efforts seemed futile. With no other option left, the brothers agreed they needed outside help. They decided to place an ad in the regional newspaper, asking for help in their search for the mysterious RS. Then the wait began. And it was a long one. For almost 2 months, there was nothing but dead silence. One day, early in the morning, the phone in Tom's house rang. It was 6:15 o'clock, and it was still dark outside. Who called at this hour? Tom wondered, slightly irritated. He picked up the phone, and on the other end, a man answered. Tom was surprised to hear the man was a historian. The historian explained that he called because of the ad. "I am convinced I can help you," he said. Without a moment of hesitation, he put on his clothes, jumped into his car, and drove over to his brother's house. Eventually, Henry opened the front door with a sleepy face, but his eyes lit up once Tom explained why he was there. "What are we waiting for? Let's go!" Henry shouted as he put on his coat. The two men got the car and drove to the historian's workplace. At the same time, Tom explained that the historian did not only have a name, but also lots of other files that would interest them. Once at the workshop of the historian, the two brothers were greeted by an elderly man. They did not waste any time and asked their most burning question. Who was RS? The old man told the brothers that the man they were looking for was named Robert Stevenson, the original owner of the land. Stevenson? That is also our last name, Henry said in awe. The historian told them that Robert Stevenson was the wealthiest man in town, maybe even the entire region, and that he lived back in the 19th century. But besides his birth, year, and status, little was known about him. That caused the historian to be so fascinated by R.S., and that's why he spent years of his life studying the mysterious man. After scrambling around in his closet for a few minutes, the old man pulled out a large sheet of paper. The brothers waited in anticipation and soon saw it was a blueprint of their land with a layout of the house in the center of it. It even had the same initials, R.S., at the bottom right corner. Yet something was different. It was a perfect copy of theirs, except for one detail. Henry was the first to spot the difference. He pointed out what the others had missed, grabbed the blueprint, and overlaid it with theirs. When he held the stacked pages up to the light, everyone gasped. The historian's blueprint was missing a room, the exact spot where their shed stood. The historian explained that after Robert Stevenson's death, all traces of his life seemed to vanish. This hidden room might be the key. The brothers exchanged hopeful glances. Had they stumbled onto something far bigger than they imagined? Without hesitation, they thanked the old man and drove straight back to their land, looking at the shed in a whole new way. Tom and Henry rushed inside and began searching again. As Henry paced, something strange happened. His footsteps, usually dull on the dirt-covered boards, sounded hollow in certain spots. He stopped and tested it again. "I think there's a hollow space beneath us," Henry said, hardly believing it. Without speaking, the brothers dropped to their knees and began digging through the compacted dirt. It took time far more than they expected, but their determination kept them going. Eventually, the dirt cleared, and they froze. Beneath them lay a wooden hatch. Together, they pulled at the handle. At first, it resisted, but with effort, it creaked and finally lifted open. Henry climbed down first, the old ladder creaking beneath him. Once at the bottom, he called for Tom to follow. The air was cold, the darkness complete. Instead of an abandoned basement, they found a furnished living area. Dust covered everything, but the room was organized, lived in, almost preserved in time. Plates, cutlery, small items, and old photographs filled the surfaces. Henry wiped the dust off a couch and began examining the pictures. Most showed a young girl. Then one image made his heart skip. He shoved it toward Tom. "This is him. It's Stevenson." The truth settled in. They had discovered the secret room the historian mentioned, the room erased from Stevenson's past. Here were photos proving he had lived a life no records described. Slowly but surely, the realization dawned on them. "This has to be the secret room the historian was talking about," Tom said enthusiastically. There was no other option. But what had the old man said about it again? Everything about Stevenson's life vanished, and the room could help them find the truth. The brothers started to search the room, but didn't know what to look for exactly. They went through the drawers of the small cabinet, moved the dresser, and looked beneath the couch. But to their disappointment, there was nothing but dust to be found. Henry's mind returned to the pictures, which had so obviously been on the table. Why was everything so well kept except for those pictures? Then he recognized one of them. A large oil painting of Robert Stevenson and his family hung on the wall, identical to the picture. This was their first real lead. Both men stepped closer and noticed the initials R.S. on the bottom corner. But then Tom saw something else. Stevenson shared their family traits. The familiar round nose, the same birthmark. Could he be their ancestor? Henry suggested, checking behind it. Together they lifted it, hearts racing, but found only bricks. Still, something felt off. When they placed the painting back, Henry noticed scraped paint along the edge. He traced it with his finger and called Tom over. They inspected the frame closely, but couldn't find an obvious mechanism. Realizing this might be their only real lead, Henry took a deep breath and broke the frame. The wood splintered, and a key fell to the floor. It was small, old, and clearly important. They almost missed the envelope that dropped with it. Henry opened it immediately. Inside was a letter claiming that only the true heir of Robert Stevenson would find it, and that the finder was entitled to the family treasure. Tom examined the wax seal, noticing an upside-down triangle, another sign they were following the right clues. The brothers read the letter repeatedly. There was definitely a hidden hint. Henry murmured the final line. "Only my true heir can find it." He paced, thinking. Then he stopped. Suddenly certain, he understood. He rushed to the cabinet and began opening and closing its drawers in a specific order. They searched for a hidden compartment, but none of the drawers were locked. Then Tom noticed the entire cabinet shook slightly with every touch. He grabbed both sides and pulled. The cabinet shifted. It wasn't just furniture, it was a disguised door. Together, the brothers moved it aside. Behind it sat a chest with a lock. Tom inserted the key from the painting. It fit perfectly. When they lifted the lid, the chest revealed golden coins and old documents. The shock and relief were overwhelming. Was this really theirs? They carefully packed everything and returned to the historian. The old man was stunned. He immediately examined the documents, which detailed Stevenson's life and contributions, and confirmed something extraordinary. The brothers were indeed direct descendants. The gold legally belonged to them. Still processing their discovery, the brothers felt a deep sense of responsibility toward their ancestor. They wondered how to honor his legacy. Eventually, they decided the best tribute was to rebuild his home. Using the blueprints as a guide, they constructed a house on their land, modeled after Stevenson's original design. It took years, and they even included the secret room as part of the structure. The connection to their family history felt stronger than ever. Years later, the brothers still lived on the property. They expanded it so their whole family could reside there. Looking back, buying the land changed the brothers' lives in ways they'd never imagined. It was not just a piece of property, but a doorway to their past and a bridge to their future. Thanks to their ancestors, the brothers could now provide for their family in ways they had never thought possible.